Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English, and today we're going to be doing a lesson on the present simple tense. Let's start the lesson. So let's start by looking at the three different forms of the present simple tense. So we're going to have a look at the affirmative, the negative and the question form. So let's start with the affirmative. So we have I work, you work, he, she, it works, we work, and they work. So let's have a quick look at this column here. So we can see it's actually quite easy. All of the forms, so we have I work, which is simple, it's the same as the infinitive. It's the same with you work, this is the infinitive. And this is the only one which changes. This is the important one to look at. So it's the third person singular. So he, she, it works. So you add an S, a letter S to the infinitive. And then we go to we work. So we go back to the infinitive. And they work, so the third person plural is the same. We keep the infinitive. Okay, so let's go through the pronunciation again. So it's I work, you work, he, she, it works, we work, and they work. Okay, now let's have a look at the negative. Sorry, the question. Do I work? Do you work? Does he, she, it work? Do we work? And do they work? So let's have a look at how this one works. So to make it a question, to make the present simple a question, we simply add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So if we compare this one to, the I work, how do we make it a question? Well, it's simple. We just add the word do to it. So I work becomes do I work. You work becomes do you work. And this is the only one. Again, it is always the third person singular, which is the one that changes, which is the important one. This is the exception. So in the third person singular, we go from he works to does he work. We go from she works to does she work. And we go from it works to does it work. So we add the word does, not do, we add the word does. We put that before the subject. And we go back to the infinitive, so the actual verb takes the infinitive form. So we take off the letter S and we go back to the infinitive. So we have does he work, does she work, does it work. Then the we form is the same. It's simply we add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So we go to do we work, and then the they form is do they work. So we go from they work becomes do they work. Okay, and obviously in all of these examples, you have to, when you're writing it, you put the question mark. This is what we call the question mark at the end of the sentence to show that we are asking a question. Okay, and when we actually pronounce it, when we speak these words in English, to make it clear that we are asking a question, we very often raise our voice at the end of the sentence. So we say, do I work? Do you work? Does he work? Do we work? Do they work? Okay, so just by slightly raising your voice at the end of the sentence, it underlines the fact that we're asking a question. Okay, now let's have a look at the negative form. I do not work, you do not work, he, she, it does not work, we do not work, and they do not work. Okay, so again, let's compare the negative form to the affirmative form, and let's look at what the rule is. So to go from I work to I do not work, so we add two words to the sentence. So we add the words do not. So the do not goes between the subject, which is I here, and the verb. And we use the infinitive form of the verb for all of them except the third person singular, except the he, she, it form. Okay, so let's go through them again. So the I work becomes I do not work. You work becomes you do not work. So we add the word do not to the sentence between the word you and work. And as always, it is this one, it is the he, she, it form, which is the one that changes. So he works becomes he does not work. So instead of adding do not to the sentence, we add does not. So we add does not, and the form of the verb itself is the infinitive. So we say he does not work, she does not work, it does not work. Okay, so there's no S at the end of work. It's he work, he does not work. Now going on to the we form. So we work becomes we do not work, and they work becomes they do not work. Alright, so to summarize, the present simple form is actually very easy. They all, the affirmative, the question and the negative, they all take the infinitive form of the verb except the third person singular. So the third person singular is this one. It is the he, she, it form. So this is the only one which is different. And in the affirmative form, we add a letter S to the end. So we go from work to works. So he, she, it works. The question form, we add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So do I work? Do you work? Except for the third person singular form again. So we just add the word does, and we go back to the infinitive. So does he work? We do not say does he works, for example. And finally, the negative form. So again, it is the third person singular form which changes. And here we say he does not work. So we add the word does not, and the actual spelling of the verb